Hi, let me start thinking about flexible exchange rates and what are the determinants of the exchange rates in markets. I talked a little bit about fixed rates, and in general, fixed rates are kind of a choice of the central bank. So what determines the exchange rate is mostly the choices of the central bank, so it's kind of tautological. But flexible rates, I said, they are determined by the market. So what I want to do is to explore some of the theories behind of what determines exchange rates when you are flexible. I'm going to assume pure flexibility for the moment, because I think if we go to the extreme, it will be easier to understand. A very important theory about exchange rate movements is an asset interpretation of the exchange rate. I always heard this from Rudy Dornbush. Rudy Dornbush was my advisor and one of the greatest international economists that has ever existed, and a brilliant mind, and also someone that was able to summarize the complexity in a very simple way with simple metaphors. So the uncovered interest rate parity is an asset view of the exchange rate. It's to think about the exchange rate as an asset. Now remember, it's not an asset, it's the price between two currencies, but truly it can be interpreted as an asset. So the uncovered interest rate parity is truly an arbitrage relationship. So imagine that I have, again, we're gonna continue assuming that we're Mexico and the world, we're concentrated the US versus Mexico. So we're concentrating on that exchange rate. So one thing that I can do, if I have $1 US, is that I can take $1 US and deposit that in the US banking system. And therefore, at the end of the year, what I'm going to collect is 1 plus I star. Let's assume that I star is the interest rate that prevail in the United States. Now I can do something else. I can take the US dollar and transform that into pesos. And the S here is a spot. I put the S because it's a spot. It's a spot exchange rate. This is the prevailing exchange rate between pesos and dollars today. So I can take the $1 and purchase pesos, which means that I will have S pesos, okay? ST. I can deposit that in Mexico, and that will imply that I will earn a different interest rate. I mean, remember, Mexico might have a different interest rate than the United States, so I will earn a different interest rate. At the end of the year, I will have a different amount of pesos, and I could convert those pesos into US dollars. And that will imply that, I can compare going through Mexico and going through the US, what are the different returns. So let me say that again. If I have $1, I can convert that into S pesos. When I have S pesos, I deposit them at the Mexican interest rate, which implies that I have 1 plus I times S pesos at the end of the year. And then I convert those pesos at the exchange rate at the end of the year, not today, at the end of the year, back to dollars. And the question is, well, is this amount of dollar bigger or smaller than 1 plus I star? See, if I convert into pesos, I earn a higher interest rate, and at the end of the year, I can convert back into dollars and get more by going through Mexico. Well, guess what hedge funds are going to do? They're going to do that investment like crazy. In fact, if there's a difference, I will borrow in the US at I star, and I will actually put the money in Mexico at I, and therefore I will make a big difference. Now, it's not only the difference between the I and the I star. In fact, let me put the two together. The difference here is not only between the interest rates, there's an expected depreciation. So, a country that has a higher interest rate, we expect that exchange rate to devalue. We are expecting the pesos at the end of the year to be less valuable. So let me put some number. If I convert at 10 pesos per dollar today, and the interest rate is higher, I expect that at the end of the year, this will be 11-1. And that actually is what determines the exchange rate path. In other words, we solve for ST plus 1. Now, this is not a certainty. This is a risky transaction. By the way, there are many aspects here. One, the default rate in Mexico and in the United States are different. I was going to say actually that the default rate of the US is smaller than Mexico, But given our political system, that might actually not be true, in the short run. So for the moment, in general, the default rate in Mexico is higher than the United States. But if you were to compare China to United States, not totally clear who has a higher default rate right now. But the whole point is emerging markets in general have higher interest rates. One of the reasons why they have higher interest rates is because their default rates are more likely to happen. But after you compensate for the default rate, it might be the case that that interest rate is higher. If that is the case, you expect the exchange rate to depreciate. I need the peso to be less valuable to compensate investors for the higher interest rate that they earn. What we do is that we look at this equation as a determinant of the exchange rate. Now, I'm not saying that this is a certainty. It is not the case. It is not the case that this equation holds every single day at every single point in time. It's not the case. But if you have an interest rate differential, if I have Mexico that has a higher interest rate than the US, so the IT is higher than the IT star, when IT is higher than the IT star, I expect ST plus 1 to be higher than ST. So I need a depreciation. When countries have a lower interest rate, then I expect an appreciation. In other words, from 10 pesos to $1, here I will expect this to go to 11, here I will expect this to go to 9. So if the interest rate in Mexico is smaller than the interest rate in the US, I expect the peso to get stronger. And that's more or less what you will expect between, for example, Japan and the United States. Interest rates in Japan, not now because of COVID, but in normal times, interest rates in Japan tend to be smaller than the interest rates in the US. And in general, the implication of that is that you see the yen getting stronger and stronger and stronger through time. That's more or less what you would expect. That's exactly what the uncovered interest rate parity is telling you. Now, the uncovered interest rate parity fails dramatically in the data, okay? It's a great theory that doesn't work. And I will come back to that in a couple of videos. See you in the next one.